When you look at a plant, it's easy to just see, well, a plant, green stuff, right? But there's so much more going on. It's not just some random collection of leaves and stems. Nope, there's an incredible architectural blueprint at play. And today, we're going to deconstruct that blueprint and really get into the hidden logic behind every single root, stem, and leaf. So, the first thing to get is that a flowering plant basically lives in two different worlds at the same time. You've got everything happening below the surface. That's the root system. It's the anchor, yeah, but it's also its lifeline, pulling up all that water and all those nutrients. Then you've got everything we actually see above ground, the stem, the leaves, the flowers. That whole part is the shoot system, and its job is to reach for the sun. So, okay, how does this incredible little natural machine actually work? Let's break it down piece by piece and look at its essential body plan. All right, here's the plan. We are literally going to build our understanding from the ground up. We'll start by digging into the roots, then we'll climb the stem, take a close look at the leaves, and finally, we'll see how the whole thing works together. Okay, let's dive in. Section 1, the root system. This is the plant's hidden half, the part we don't usually see, but man, it has some critical jobs to do. First, it's the anchor. It grips the soil to hold the plant steady against wind and rain. And second, it acts like a giant sponge, constantly absorbing the water and minerals that are, well, the plant's lifeblood. But here's the thing. Not all roots are created equal. They're not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. They generally follow two main architectural plans. On the left, you see the taproot system. This one's dominated by one big, thick central root that just drills straight down into the ground. And on the right, you've got the fibrous root system, which is totally different. It forms this dense, tangled mat of roots right below the surface. So what's the real difference? It all comes down to how they get started. A taproot, which you'll find in dicots, think carrots or dandelions, it develops from one main root that just keeps growing straight down, with smaller roots branching off the sides. But a fibrous system, which is what you see in monocots like grass or corn, is different. It starts with a main root, but that one dies off pretty quickly. It's then replaced by this big burst of roots that all pop out from the base of the stem. Okay, now let's zoom in. I mean, way in. We're looking at the very tip of a single root, because this is where all the action is. This diagram here is great. It shows us that the root tip isn't just one thing. It's actually divided into these different zones, and each one has a specific job. Let's break them down. So right at the very tip, we have the root cap. The easiest way to think about this is like a tiny little hard hat for the root. It's this thimble-shaped layer of cells, and its only job is to protect the really tender, growing part of the root as it bulldozes its way through the soil. Okay, tucked right behind that little hard hat is the region of meristematic activity. This is basically the root's 24/7 construction zone. The cells here are super small, really dense, and just packed with energy. They have one single purpose: divide, divide, divide. They're constantly making new cells for the root to grow. So what happens to all those new cells? Well, they move into the next zone, the region of elongation. In this area, cell division stops. Instead, these brand new cells just stretch out. They rapidly get longer and bigger, kind of like inflating a bunch of tiny long balloons. And that stretching is the actual force that pushes the root tip deeper and deeper into the soil. And that brings us to the last zone, the region of maturation. This is where the cells basically grow up. They get their final job assignments. And the most important thing that happens here is the growth of these incredibly fine, delicate, thread-like root hairs. These little things are a game changer. They massively increase the surface area of the root, making this the #1 spot for soaking up all that water and all those nutrients from the soil. Okay, so we've covered the hidden half. Let's move up from the ground now into the shoot system and take a look at the stem. The stem is pretty much the plant's main highway. It's the support structure, its vertical axis, and it's also the internal plumbing, holding up all the leaves and moving water and food all around the plant. A stem's design is actually surprisingly simple. It's modular. It's basically made of these repeating units. You have what are called nodes. Think of these as the active hubs or intersections where leaves and branches can sprout. And then, connecting those hubs, you have the internodes. Those are just the straight, plain sections of stem in between. Now, plants are absolute masters of efficiency. Nothing is left to chance, and that is especially true for where they place their leaves. There's a deliberate pattern to it, and it has a name: phyllotaxy. The whole goal here is simple: make sure every leaf gets as much sunlight as possible. So let's look at the 3 main patterns they use to do this. First up, we've got the alternate pattern, which you can see here on this China rose. It's really straightforward. A single leaf grows at each node, and they're arranged in a spiral going up the stem. It's a super effective way to prevent the leaves from shading the ones directly below. Yeah, pretty clever. Next, there's the opposite arrangement. This guava plant is a perfect example. Here you get a pair of leaves emerging from the same node directly opposite each other. And what's really cool is that often each pair is rotated 90 degrees from the pair just below it. Again, it's all about maximizing that light capture. And the third main type is called whorled phyllotaxy. In this pattern, which you can see in this Alstonia plant, you get more than 2 leaves all growing from a single node. They form this beautiful radiating circle, which we call a whorl. All right, so we've climbed the stem. Now let's talk about the leaf itself. And really, this is the engine of the whole plant. The leaf is where one of the most important biological processes on the entire planet happens, photosynthesis. You can think of it as both a solar panel and a food factory, all wrapped up in one elegant, efficient design. So, a typical leaf is made of 3 main parts. You've got the leaf base, which is just the little joint where it connects to the stem. Then there's the petiole, that's the stalk. It gives the leaf some flexibility so it can move around in the wind and catch the light. And finally, you have the lamina. That's the main event, the big, broad, flat part of the leaf that's designed to be the ultimate solar collector. Now, if you look really closely at a leaf, you'll see this whole network of veins, right? Well, that pattern has a name. It's called veination. And these veins act as both the leaf's plumbing system and its structural skeleton. There are 2 main types you'll see. There's reticulate veination, which is common in dicots. It creates this really complex net-like pattern. And then there's parallel veination, which you'll see in monocots, like grass, where the veins all run in nice straight parallel lines from the bottom of the leaf to the tip. One last thing about leaves. They come in 2 main flavors, simple or compound. A simple leaf is just what it sounds like. It has one single undivided blade. Now, the edge might be wavy or serrated, but it's still one piece. A compound leaf, on the other hand, is one where that blade is divided up so deeply that it's actually broken into a bunch of smaller, separate little parts, and we call those leaflets. Okay, so we've looked at all the individual pieces of the puzzle. Now let's take a step back and see how this elegant blueprint comes together to create one single living organism. When you get right down to it, it's all about a perfect division of labor. The roots have their job, anchor the plant and drink up water and minerals. The stem has its job, support the plant and transport everything around. And the leaves have their job, create food from sunlight. Each part has a totally distinct and absolutely essential role, and they all work together in perfect harmony. So, what we've just covered is the basic blueprint, right? The fundamental design of a flowering plant. But the real magic is in all the variations, the incredible diversity out there. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you're outside, I want you to take a closer look. Now that you know the basic plan, what kind of incredible, weird, and wonderful variations on this theme can you spot in the world right outside your door?